Hello and welcome to another Fabula Ultima class feature. This is the Esper, a guide by Fabula Points, me. So jumping right in like we normally do, the Esper is your kind of psychic class. It's also like empath, scion or soul hacker. Is what the flavor text at least says anyway. But this is a class that uses like kind of psychic powers and like special gifts to be able to attack, buff, debuff, etc. So I'm just going to jump straight in. Your free benefits, you permanently increase your maximum mind points by 5, which is pretty good. So the first skill, Cognitive Focus, has got 5 skill points. So at the start of your turn during a conflict, you may choose one ally who is able to hear you, or one enemy you can see that is suffering from dazed, enraged, and or shaken. Until the start of your next turn, the chosen creature becomes your focus. So you don't have to roll to get like an enemy to be focused, it just has to have one of these conditions. You gain a bonus equal to skill level to checks you perform to examine your focus, as well as to your accuracy checks and magic checks for attacks and offensive spells that include your focus among the targets. So this is potentially a +5 to accuracy checks, which is huge. So when you cause your focus to recover hit points and or mind points, they recover skill level times 2 additional HP and or MP respectively. So that's more for if you're targeting your allies and you want to be like a better healer, because you can do like an extra 10 healing or for HP or mind points, which is pretty good. Like, I like it. I like Cognitive Focus. Like, it's got a healthy mix of, if you want to cause offense, you'll hit more often. If you want to be like supportive, you'll be able to heal. Like, especially if you're a spiritist, where you've got access to like light damaging spells as well as being able to heal. Like, I think this is great. Love it. Next one, Hypercognition, is another 5 skill point that you can do. The total MP cost of your spells and verses, because verses weren't classed as spells from the Techno Fantasy Atlas, that include your focus among the targets, is reduced by skill level, or by skill level times 2 if your focus is the only target, to a minimum cost of 0 mind points. This means if you're doing like a single heal on someone, like if you max both of these, for example, and you just want to be a really good healer, like you just want to bump your spiritist up or something, you could potentially have a single target heal that costs no mind points that heals an extra 10 because of Cognitive Focus, and you can just spam that. Like, that's awesome. I really like it. Navigator, this is only the 1 skill point, so you can communicate telepathically with any conscious ally within 1 travel day of you. You are able to hear each other for the sake of skills and effects, so this is massive. So if you think of something like the Chanter with his verses, the verses, you can pick allies who can hear you. So your Esper can hear you within 1 travel day. So you could, for example, send an Esper on to like do some kind of like negotiation or something like that, and if things turn sour, you can have your I've already forgotten the name, your Chanter, to be able to buff them from like a mile away, and there'd be no way to counter those buffs. Like, I think it's great. You can do a lot with this. Psychic gifts I'm going to temporarily gloss over because that's like the core of the Esper. I'll come back to that in a second, but the last one is Psychokinesis, which again is only 1 skill point. When you perform an accuracy check, you may replace one of the attribute dice with a willpower, such as Dex plus willpower for a short bow. Additionally, your melee attacks with weapons belonging to the arcane or sword categories may target flying creatures. Like, this is enormous. Like, for being able to target flying creatures, like, a lot of the times when you have a sword you can't. Like, I know you can get skills like some of the elementalist spells to do that, but you could easily take 1 Psychokinesis, take a bunch of Cognitive Focus, do the rest in gifts if you want, and then you'd be able to get like a swordsman or something to be able to attack more people, and as long as they're dazed, enraged or shaken, you can make them their focus, and then you're more accurate. Like, I really think the Esper is great. It's really powerful. But we haven't even talked about the main bread and butter of it, which is the psychic gifts. So this is a 5 skill point skill. So each time you take the skill, you gain a gift. The rules for gifts and for the brainwave clock can be found on the next page. So let's jump to the next page. So basically the way these work, these are gifts that get more powerful as you use more of them in a combat scene, but they also cost more. So Gifts can only be used when specific events take place. So see the first one, Atmokinesis says the event is when you deal damage. So you can only use this when you deal damage. So gifts can only be used when a specific event takes place. When this happens, you may spend an amount of mind points equal to the number of filled sections in your brainwave clock multiplied by 5, minimum 5 mind points, in order to apply the effects of the gifts. So when you first enter the combat, it's empty. So it's like here, your brainwave clock 4 sections begins to seem empty. So if you use a skill, so you'd have 0 multiplied by 5, which is obviously 0, but it's a minimum of 5, so it would cost you 5 mind points to do this. But as an Esper, you get maximum mind points increased by 5, so like it's basically a one-off if you're fully healed, a free one even. So you may only use a single gift per event, so there's a few that say when they deal damage, so you could have to pick one. And then if a gift causes HP or MP recovery, or if the gift causes MP loss, the amounts increase by 10 if you are level 20 or higher, or by 20 if you're level 40 or higher. So this like helps healing and all sorts, but we'll go into how that plays with each gift as we get there. So when you first acquire the psychic gift skill to start the brainwave clock, as I said, brainwave clock is 4 sections, begins to seem empty. After you resolve one of your gifts, fill 1 section of the brainwave clock. You do so after the effects of the gifts have been calculated and applied. Yeah, so your brainwave clock determines your gifts cost in mind points as well as their effectiveness. You can still use your gifts when the clock is full, which is a big one, because none of these remove charges from your clock. So sections of the brainwave clock may not be filled in any other way than described above, and they may only be erased through the brainwave discharge heroic skill or through effects that expressively influence brainwave clocks. So like, you can't, unless you get this skill, basically it's very hard to discharge this. But because it begins each scene empty, when you finish a combat scene, you then go to like a social scene, and then it's empty again. So you don't have to worry about filling your clock and it costing a lot of mind points, and then you go into a new combat scene, because it's a new scene, it would then be empty, so you don't have to worry about that at least. But let's talk about the gifts. So Atmokinesis, probably mispronouncing some of these. So the event is when you deal damage, as I mentioned. So that damage becomes air or bolt. So you've got a choice of 2, and its source deals extra damage equal to 2 plus the number of filled sections in your brainwave clock. So obviously if you filled all 4, it would do an extra 6 damage. Like 6 damage isn't much, but this is a nice kind of to have in your pocket, where if someone's like, say if you're doing like a lot of physical damage and then suddenly someone's weak to bolt, you can trigger this and then you can have extra bolt damage, and then because they're weak to it, it deals even more damage. Like, there's good things you can do with this kind of stuff. The next one, Clairvoyance. So when an NPC becomes your focus, or when you create a bond towards an NPC, is when you can trigger it. You ask the Game Master a single question about that NPC, which the Game Master must answer truthfully. Then describe what sensation revealed this information to you. You may use this gift only once on each NPC. So you could potentially do this, say if there's an NPC that's that you don't trust, and you kind of gain a bond towards them to try and get them to trust you more. You can trigger this, and then you can find out they're the real big bad, and then you can kind of attack them there and then if you want, without all their gear and friends and things like that. So this is good. It has the potential to slightly derail aspects of a campaign, but speak to your GM if you take this and if you plan on taking this, so that they can like at least have like that thought in their mind while they're trying to plan stuff. The next one, Gravitokinesis, is when you deal damage. So again, you won't be able to trigger these 2 at the same time. The damage becomes earth or physical, and its source deals extra damage equal to 2 plus number of full sections of the brainwave clock. Like the same, it's exactly the same at the start, except that's air or bolt, this is earth and physical. But if the source deals damage to one or more flying creatures, they are forced to land immediately, which is an extra added bonus. Life transference is when you can trigger it when you cause one or more enemies to lose HP. So you choose yourself or an ally who is your focus, So it has to already be your focus for it to work. You can't add the focus here. If the chosen creature is in crisis, they recover an amount of hit points equal to 5 plus the number of filled sections in your brainwave clock multiplied by 5. So this can go up to 4 times 5 is 20 plus 5 25. Then if you're level 40, it'll go to 45. So this is very specific. So the creature has to be in crisis. So if you've got like a Darkblade who likes being in crisis, then this will work quite well. But it might potentially take them out of crisis. So it's one of the things to be careful of. But it's also like a panic button. If someone who really shouldn't be in crisis is in crisis, you can help them out. Next one, photokinesis, is when you deal damage. It's exactly the same as atmokinesis, but dark and light instead. Psychic backlash is after an enemy succeeds on an opposed check against you or causes you to lose hit points. That enemy loses amount of mind points equal to 5 plus the number of field sections of brainwave clock multiplied by 5. Then choose one option. That enemy suffers dazed or that enemy suffers shaken. So this is great because if you think about it, if an enemy hits you, not only lose mind points, which is nice, you can cause them to be dazed or shaken, but then that means you can, because they're dazed or shaken, you can choose the creature to be your focus, which then you can trigger everything else. So this is one I would take definitely, like most of the time, because it's a free, oh, I don't need to rely on anyone else or any other skills to be able to focus on an enemy. And then obviously, like, causing them to lose mind points is always great, especially if they're a caster. 3 more left. Psychic shield. After an enemy you can see performs an accuracy check or magic check is when this happens. So for the purposes of that check, you may treat your defense and magic defense scores as being equal to your current willpower dice size plus the number of fill sections of brainwave clock multiplied by 2. So if you've got 4 sections in, multiplied by 2, that makes it 8 plus your willpower dice. So if your willpower dice is a d10, that becomes 18. If you've got it up to a d12, that could become 20. So this could be a really good way of being able to suddenly stop an attack. It costs you 5 mind points, but like a 20 is going to be pretty hard for people to be able to hit. And there's more buffs we can do with this with heroic skills, which I'll get to in a second. But the next one, reassuring presence. So after you cover an ally with the guard action, very specific, but you can build around it, that ally recovers amount of mind points equal to 10 plus the number of filled sections in your brainwave clock multiplied by 5. If that ally is your focus, they heal from a single status effect of their choice out of dazed, enraged, or shaken. So that's nice. This could be quite good if you're like having to like words can't think. If you're having to defend an NPC, for example, who isn't quite as bulky as the rest of your team, this is a nice thing you can do. And the last one, thermokinesis, is the same as atmokinesis and photokinesis, but it's fire and ice instead. It happens when you deal damage. So I really like it. You've got options. You can take this a bunch of different ways. Like, I think it's great. But we've only talked about the skills. We need to also go over the heroic skills. So there's 3 in this book, and obviously there aren't in any of the other books. So the first one, brainwave discharge. So we mentioned before that you can't discharge your gifts apart from this or other very specific things that aren't covered here. So while your brainwave clock is full, you may use an action to erase all of its sections. If you do, you may choose one option. You either deal 20 psychic damage to every enemy that is present on the scene, or you deal 30 physical damage. Did I say psychic? I meant physical. You deal 30 physical damage to a single enemy you can see. This amount increases by 10 if you're level 20 or 20 if you're level 40. So this is like, you can kind of like flavor it, like your psychic powers are becoming too much and you've got to like kind of eject it. But this is great, especially as the more sections of your brainwave clock you've got, the more MP it costs, because the MP is the number of your brainwave clock multiplied by 5. So it could end up costing 20 MP per go, and if you don't have enough MP left, then having a brainwave discharge is a way you can deal damage, and it's a way that your next gifts will cost less MP. So I really like it. This is like a solid way to discharge your brainwave clock, so this is a really solid choice. but it isn't the only choice. So the next one is Dream Slice. So you must have mastered one or more classes out of Darkblade and Esper. So when you hit one or more actions with an attack from your Shadow Strike skill using a weapon that belongs to the sword category, so this is very specific, so this is if you're a sword wielding Darkblade, each of those creatures loses an amount of mind points equal to the number you rolled on your might die for Shadow Strike. Then if the number you rolled on your might die for Shadow Strike was more than 8, you may choose one creature hit by the attack. If that creature is your focus, or you have a bond towards them, that creature will perform one fewer action during the next turn to a minimum of 0 actions. So this is the kind of heroic skill that you can build a character around. You can have this in mind from when you start the game, for example, and you can really lean into like getting your Darkblade better. Especially because if you take where was it? Oh, which one was it? I kind of think no, it wasn't a heroic skill. It was one of these. Yeah, if you take Psychokinesis, then your sword attacks can target flying creatures. So if you were to combine the two, you could have Dream Slice being able to hit flying creatures because you have a sword. That's what I was looking for. Sorry about that. So if you're going the Darkblade Dream Slice way, Psychokinesis and Cognitive Focus are the way to go. But yeah, there's one more, Psychic Field. Psychic Field. So there's no extra class for this. Your gifts with the event when you deal damage can also be used when an ally who is able to hear you deals damage. So let's take the wording of one. We'll take look at Photokinesis. So when an ally who is able to hear you deals damage, that damage can become light or dark with that, and its source deals extra damage equal to equal to the brainwave clock stuff. So this again can be triggered with why did I get rid of it? This can be triggered with like the other skill, Navigator, because it says like because Navigator means you need to be able to hear each other, and this is an ally who is able to hear you, so you can use this as well to trigger off of that. So you can change an ally who can hear you, who may be miles away, you can change their damage to be able to do more. So yeah, this is like a really fun way to be able to just buff other people without necessarily needing to be near them. But there's more. So your Psychic Shield gift, if you've required it, so Psychic Shield is the one that makes your your defenses higher, has this effect changed to you and every ally who is able to hear you may treat your defense and magic defense scores as being equal to your current willpower die size plus the number of filled sections in your brainwave clock multiplied by 2 against that check. So instead of you being able to have like up to like 20 defense and magic defense, all of your allies can do that as well. So if there's like some kind of big massive final attack incoming that will target all of your party, you can use this as a big massive defense boost, which I really like. So were you to have the Esper class in your character, obviously you would just play an Esper, you have to multi-class. The choices really come down to take Dream Slice if you want to be the Darkblade with a sword. Otherwise you've got a choice between Psychic Field, which will help you buff your allies and get extra defense, or the Brainwave Discharge, which gives you more offensive capabilities and remove sections of your brainwave clock. But yeah, that's the Esper. I really like it. I think it's a really strong class. I think there's not many classes you can have that wouldn't benefit from having Esper added in. To such a point that my last video was updating my tier list from how well classes play with each other. The Esper is clearly an S. Like, I'm just, I know it's spoilers for an upcoming video, but it just clearly is. Like, there's no other way around it. You can buff damage, you can buff healing, you can just do almost everything. Like, it's gonna be really hard not to pick Esper for all of my classes in all of my games. But yeah, that's enough rambling for me. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.